Hola guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Roxanne. If it's your first time here, then welcome. Today I want to talk to you guys about my favorite fiction reads of 2019. I'm going to be talking about these in order that I read them throughout the year, so not necessarily sort of least of the favorites to the most of the favorites, just the order that I read them in. So the earliest favorite is In the Woods, and I'm looking down because I have my laptop down here so I can remember you know, any details that I want to talk to you guys about. So the first was In the Woods by Tana, and that's the first in the Dublin Murder Squad series, and it is a mystery series. This one takes us along the story with a female and male detective partners, and I loved everything about it. It takes us sort of back and forth between this old mystery that has something very personal to do with one of our detectives that may or may not be tied to the current mystery that they're dealing with, and so it takes us back and forth between that old mystery and this new one. The writing is incredibly atmospheric and dark and mysterious and enticing, and I was incredibly gripped by it the entire time. I was so curious to see what happened in this mystery and in the old mystery. There wasn't one that I liked more than the other. I liked both of them equally. I liked both of our characters equally. They're flawed but incredibly complex characters that I loved getting to know, and I immediately became a huge fan of her writing and of the series, and I have the next two in the series, and I can't wait to get to them immediately in this next year because I think I'm going to love them just as much as I loved this one. So then we have another first in a mystery series. It's called The Widows of Malabar Hill by Sujata Massey, and it is the Praveen mystery series. It's number one. Also a mystery of 1920s India or Bombay. I guess on the cover it has a certain series title, but on Goodreads it has another one. So our main character is Praveen, and I guess it's the mystery of 1920s Bombay. And this one is really great. If you enjoy Ashley Weaver's sort of historical mystery series, I think you'll really like this one as well. It's in 1920s Bombay, and we have this female character who is trying really hard to become an actual lawyer, but because of the laws of the time, she sort of has to do certain things under her dad's name, and she can't do certain things by herself because she's a woman. And she becomes involved in the mystery that has to do with these Muslim widows, and it really talks about all of their different customs and the laws and things that they can and can't do at the time. But it was an incredibly feminist mystery series, and it was great to read. It was so much fun, and also I got to learn a lot at the same time. This has one of my favorite father-daughter relationships ever. She has a great dad who really, you can tell, really cares about her and about her future and her career. And there were some you know, trigger warning, I would say, for a very toxic domestic situation, but I absolutely adored it. I couldn't put it down. I'm waiting for the second one to come out in paperback so that I could buy it and read it as well. I think I'm gonna really love this series. I love the character. She was so smart and had such great agency. I absolutely loved it. And we have her best friend, who's a semi-prominent character, is queer, which is great. Then we have Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. This is one that and Olive actually from over at a book Olive mentioned it in her favorites as well, and mentioned how many people sort of put this one aside from Jane Austen's catalog, or is the last that they read. And this is definitely not one of the ones that I paid the most attention to when I was trying to get through her catalog, and it's very unfortunate because it actually turned out to be one of my absolute favorites. I think right now it might sit at just below Pride and Prejudice for my favorite Jane Austen. It has Fanny Price, who is probably one of the dearest characters that I have read for such a long time. I grew to love her almost immediately. She is taken in by her aunt and uncle as a way for her aunt and uncle to sort of alleviate some of the financial strain on Fanny's parents, who have many children. But when she goes to live with them, you can tell that they really just don't really want her there. They have a disdain for her, but she really doesn't let that affect who she is as a person, and her views on life and the care that she has for her cousins and those around her. And she just has this amazing way of being that you just really want her to succeed, and you want nothing but the best for her. And I just felt completely enamored by her as a character. Jane Austen's writing again shines in this, and I loved how, despite the fact that she's not as sort of spunky as Lizzie Bennet, she still has agency, and she knows what she wants, and she's willing to stand up for it. And that is so amazing to read about as well. Fanny Price really just shows that you can have a lot of really soft sides, but be really great as well, and really strong and powerful. I loved everything about this novel. Then we have probably one of my favorite audiobooks ever, and it is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I know that this is not as universally beloved as Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but I am one of the ones that really enjoyed it. I loved how we discover the different sort of complexities of love, especially in this context of sex and drugs and rock and roll in the 70s. And it was so much fun, but I had so many powerful moments and soft moments as well. Like I said, it has probably one of my favorite audiobooks ever because it has a full cast doing it, and it just came alive for me, and I couldn't put it down. I needed to know what was going to happen. I was rooting for different things at the same time. And it's like it's also this exploration of how you can the love you feel towards different people, it just manifests differently for different people, and you can have these sort of different beings that are meant to be in your life for different reasons and at different times. And I loved it. I loved the message that she was trying to send with it. I love that she didn't glorify this sort of sex, drugs, and alcohol thing. She was very honest. It felt very honest. And yeah, I mean, I loved these characters. I cannot wait for, I think it's a TV show, I think. I cannot wait because I needed to hear these songs that are so pivotal to their storyline. I need to hear what they sound like, and I need to hear her voice, and I just love it. Then it's a really fun one. It was Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is it's a queer romance book. It's about our two main characters, Alex, who is the first son, American first son, and the royal prince Henry. And they start out really not liking each other, but then are sort of forced to come together for an event, and things go awry, and so they're forced to spend more time together and sort of make up for this hassle that they've created for both of their families. And it is an absolute freaking delight. It is so funny. It is witty. It is the exact political environment I wish we got right now. We have a Mexican male main character. I think his father is Mexican. His mom might be white, but there are sides of his Latinidad that you get to see that are really great, showcased in this book. And this is just one of the funniest books that I read this year, and it was so charming and lovely. I loved the storyline and their love and their coming together, and this sort of grumpiness turning into love. It warmed my heart entirely. I can't wait to see what else Casey McKinston has in store for us. I absolutely loved it. Then one that you might have seen if you watched my heartwarming reads video that I did not too long ago. It's The Storied Life of AJ Fikri by Gabrielle Zevin, and this is a pretty short book, great for lovers of books about books and books about booksellers and bookstores. And like I've said a few times already, it's about a very persnickety grumpy old not old, persnickety grumpy man, AJ Fikri, who owns a bookstore and is very set in his ways, and it is about love coming into his life and showing him that are different ways to be, that you can have softness to you, that you can change no matter what age you're at, and that's a beautiful and lovely thing. And it is heartwarming and it is heartbreaking at the same time. There is nothing that I didn't love about this story. It absolutely touched my heart. It's the last time that I remember like seriously crying during a book. It was amazing. Then we have Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. This is the first Elizabeth Gaskell that I've read, and I understand why people who read Elizabeth Gaskell love her so much. The writing was amazing, and I was unfortunate because I actually think that this the way that this was published was published in pieces in like a newspaper, if I'm not mistaken, and she actually passed before she was able to fully finish it. And I just wish we would have I was left really just wanting even more. Molly Gibson is our main character. She is the daughter of the sort of village doctor, and she loves the life that she has. It's her and her dad. I believe her mother passed when she was young, and they just had a really good life, just the two of them. And then it happens that he decides that he wants to give her a mother, and her life is sort of turned completely upside down from that. And then you have the wife coming in, and then the daughters as well, which is Molly, and then her new stepsister. And again, we have another main character that I felt similarly towards her that I felt towards Fanny Price. And I actually think that if you like Mansfield Park, you will just as much like Wives and Daughters. You have this amazingly soft, amazing, just such a good-hearted character that she can see everybody exactly for who they are, and she doesn't let them step over her, and she doesn't let them get in her way or manipulate her into doing something that she doesn't want and being someone that she doesn't want to be. She's amazing as a character. I loved her just as much as I loved Fanny Price. And again, it just shows that there are different ways to be an amazing woman, and it's okay to be soft, because you can also have just a different sort of manifestation of that badass that we are always pushed to see in media, sort of like, you know, the assassins or the thieves or the, you know, sassy feisty ones. Like, you can be a Fanny Price and you can be a Molly Gibson and be just as strong and just as effective as a character and as a main character, and have just as much agency. And I loved her so much for it. Then we have a companion novel. This was When We Left Cuba by Chanel Cleaton. This is the companion to Last Year in Havana. It would appear that every book that she's going to write going on is going to focus on a different sister. And this one focuses on Beatriz and the adventures, really, that adventures and dangerous adventures that she undertakes after they leave Cuba as refugees from everything that happened after the revolution with Castro. And it's about love, and love for yourself, and love for your country, and love for your people, and love for someone else, especially when maybe it's not someone that you're supposed to be in love with, or there's something sort of forbidden about it. I guess, warning, if you were not a person that likes to read about extramarital affairs or sort of cheating, maybe skip this one. But God, I loved the love story in this one. It was amazing. It was just as amazing as Last Year in Havana. I loved it just as much. You get you get just as much sort of history and romance, and the characters are just as well fleshed out in my opinion, and they are amazing to read about. These are so readable and so amazing, so unputdownable for sure. I can't wait to see the stories of the other sisters. I mean, I can't wait. I push these books on literally everyone that I can. Read Last Year in Havana, and then once you love it, read When We Left Cuba. It's amazing. And one of the things that I love is that these are characters that have privilege, but Chanel Cleaton doesn't ever let you sort of forget that, and doesn't let her characters forget that. Like she's obviously using them as tools to tell you the story, and she's telling you their story, and it's amazing, but at the same time, like, you're always aware that things are for them a certain way because of the privilege that they have. And I think that was really good and brave of her to do, while simultaneously using these characters to tell the story. I think it was expertly done, and I loved it. Then we have one you've probably heard of everywhere, or seen everywhere this year. It's Where the Crawdads Sing. And for me, it's this beautiful story about this young girl named Marsh Girl. Kaya is her name. They call her the Marsh Girl because she lives in the marshes, and she's pretty much abandoned by absolutely everybody in her family, and she has to figure it out and live on her own. And so she finds a way to sort of have this arrangement with a local business owner where she can bring him fish and he'll give her something. And so she sort of begins to learn ways to survive. But my favorite thing was really just the nature writing, and this is absolutely gorgeous and beautiful and gripping and moving. And within all of this, there is a mystery component as well. There is a man who's found dead, and you sort of have to figure out what Kaya had or hadn't not to do with it. It's also about love. It's a beautiful love story as well, and I loved it. The one thing that I will 100% admit is that it has a character that gets a little bit too close to being that sort of magical black character trope that I didn't like. I mean, but again, I mean, I don't know that was Delia Owens' intention. It didn't feel that way. It just, I think coincidentally for me, that's what I pictured when I was reading it. And so that's something that I will point out and say, but overall I still couldn't put it down, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I was trying to figure out the mystery, and at the end it both was and wasn't what I was expecting. I loved it, and I can understand why it's beloved by so many. Then we have a YA book. It's With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. I think by now she has firmly placed herself in my favorite YA author list. This is about our main character Amani, who is a high schooler who loves to cook, and she's also a teen mom, and she's sort of trying to know how to balance all of that at once and sort of be successful in both, give her daughter things that she felt she missed out on in her childhood, and then, you know, find success in herself. And it was beautiful. It felt very real and very relatable, and it was everything that Elizabeth Acevedo does wonderfully, again, in a story. And I think that she's going to continue. I think Elizabeth Acevedo is going to continue to do amazing things. I can't wait already for her next one, which is, I think, Clap When You Land. So yeah, this is just like a very cute magical book. Then we have Signal to Noise by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This was my first Silvia Moreno Garcia, and most definitely not my last. It was amazing, and it is a fantasy about these young teenagers. It's dual time, so it's in 1988 Mexico City and then 2009 Mexico City, and it's about these three teenagers who are sort of outcasts, misfits, and find that they're able to perform magic through vinyl records and playing music. And it's such a cool concept, and what I loved most about this story is the sense of redemption and how you can aim for it, and it's about how you can really fuck up as a kid, and really as just a person, and it's about owning up to that and sort of getting over that pride that you feel when you really want to do what all you want to do is define yourself, and sort of get over it and realize, hey, you know, you messed up, and ask for forgiveness and try to make up for what you did. And it's about friendship, and it's about one of our secondary female character. It's for her finding agency in herself, and it's about love and youth and music, and it's about everything that I love. And with a Latinx author and cast of characters, you can't go wrong. Then we have another Latinx book, is Bodega Dreams by Ernesto Quiñones, and this is a story set in Spanish Harlem, and it's about Chino, who's our main character, who gets into some dealings with Willy Bodega, who's the sort of kingpin of Spanish Harlem, and it's about how he tries to settle those dealings with him and sort of come out on top. But really, this is a story about the identity of a people and the identity of a place, and how the circumstances in which you live or are born in, how those circumstances can really have a huge say in your life and what you do with it and the opportunities that you have. And it's about coming into a new country and making it on your own, and still keeping that culture that you had from back home. It's about really just a huge sense of community. I felt like I knew someone similar to or like every single one of the characters in this novel. I thought it was rugged and honest and in your face, and I loved it. We have Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is my first novel of hers that I've read, and I'm so upset that I waited so long to read it, because oh my god, did I love it. It's really this sweeping love story about our two main characters, Ifemelu and Obinze, who are born in Nigeria and fall in love in Nigeria, but then life sort of takes them to two different places. Ifemelu moves to America and sort of finds out what it's like to be an African in America, an African black person in America. And Obinze goes to the UK and sort of has to deal with being the immigrant experience over there, and it's about how different those two things are, the different circumstances in which they live, their love, the things that they feel like they have to do to survive, different sort of racial issues that arise and just their living day to day in these two different countries that are themselves. They're different from each other, but then are also so very different from where they came from in Nigeria. And there's one thing that I could say about this, is that it felt so sort of stripped and honest. Like, it was like she sat down and through these two characters said so much social commentary, so much racial commentary, so much economic comment, everything of cultural, everything that she's sort of thought she found a way to display through these two characters. And it felt so honest and so intimate, and so real, and I just kept hearing things that made me sit and ponder, and it was magnificent. This novel was absolutely magnificent. I loved it, and I cannot recommend it enough. Then we have Cantoras by Carolina de Robertis, which might be my favorite of the year. This is a historical fiction novel about 5 women in Uruguay living under the Uruguayan dictatorship in the 1970s, where it is illegal for them to be queer. It is illegal for a lot of them to do a lot of what they do, and it's about them finding solace with each other. And in this little beach town that they find, where they go and they feel like they can finally be themselves. And it's about each of their individual stories, both individually and together as a group. It's about the history of the time. It's about revolution. It's about family. It's about identity, sexuality, love. what the sort of expectations that your family sets for you, the expectations that your country sets for you, things that, like, that love that you can feel for your country, but also a disdain at the same time, and a resentment for the things that it does or it has done, or its history, how it views you as a person, and how it maybe so much of it is against who you are as a person. This felt like a love story to women, to queer women, to Latino America, to revolution and its role in Latin America's history. And it sang to me in the most cheesy way that sounds. That's exactly what it did. I felt so touched by this novel. Her writing is dreamlike and sweeping and amazing in every sense of those words, and she has firmly placed herself as one of my all-time favorite authors ever. Then we have The Library of Lost and Found. I read like over 100 books, so the fact that I was able to narrow it down to 16 is good on me. The Library of Lost and Found by Phaedra Patrick. If you again saw my video about heartwarming reads, you will have seen me speak about this one. It's about a librarian assistant named Martha who comes to the library to do her job and finds instead that the job she came to do has actually been canceled, and she's been left with this mysterious book. In it are stories that she used to write and say as a kid. And so it begins this sort of whirlwind adventure in her life to try and find out how did she got this book, who gave it to her, who saved it, who wrote these down. The people that the person who she told these to was her grandmother, who's supposed to be dead, but is she? And so we kind of go from there, and it is just such a heartwarming story. It gave me similar feelings to the storied life of AJ Fikri, these sort of very bookish characters that are set in their ways but have to find ways to step out of that, hi buddy, to step out of that comfort zone and change and accept things that might be out of their control. In Martha's case, it's really her about finding agency, which she really didn't have much of. She was walked over by everybody. She was taken advantage of. She was doing everybody's chores and fixing everything for everybody, all the while having a really unhappy life herself. And it's about how this mystery that she embarks upon allows her to also find herself and to learn more about her past and her family and redefine who she is as a person, and really finally come to a place where she feels comfortable and confident in herself. It was amazing. I actually think, that's the last one. So if you made it all the way to the end, thank you for sticking it out with me. Those are my favorite fiction books of 2019. I loved every single one of them for their own very specific reasons with absolutely all of my heart. I would reread them all in a heartbeat. I recommend them all to you guys. Another one that I actually didn't mention, it's a direct sequel, and that is Wondersmith by Jessica Townsend. And I'll just mention that one very briefly because, like I said, it is a direct sequel, whereas the other ones were like either a companion or something that you could essentially also read on its own. So Wondersmith, The Calling of Morgan Crow is the Nevermore series number 2, and I loved it. We got to know more about this very magical world that Morgan Crow lives in. It is a middle grade fantasy series that it's the first time I've felt those nostalgic feels that I felt during Harry Potter. It's the first time I've been able to feel them again while reading a series. So I would check it out if you haven't yet. I'm sure you might have heard about it because it is a pretty popular series in on BookTube. So yeah, that one as well. But thank you so much for watching and for listening. Thank you for sticking with me through this year. My favorite nonfiction picks will be with you guys shortly. Thank you for watching and for listening. Love you guys.